The space station floated quietly above a pale blue moon, circling it like a patient guardian that had seen countless visitors come and go. On this day, it was unusually crowded. Ships from different species, small ones, giant ones, glowing ones, even living organic vessels hovered around the docking rings. The entire place carried a strange tension, the kind that made every sound feel louder and every silence feel heavier. The galaxy had gathered here for an important meeting, one that would decide whether peace would survive or fall apart. In the middle of this slow-moving chaos, a human transport ship approached the station. It wasn't large or flashy. No bright colors, no powerful energy signature, nothing to show off. It simply moved with calm control, as if the people inside felt no pressure at all. Many aliens watched it through their viewing screens. Some expected humans to arrive in something dramatic or impressive, because humans often surprise the galaxy. But this ship looked like any other quiet vessel, almost cautious in its behavior. When the doors finally opened, the human delegation stepped out. They weren't many, only a handful of people, forming a small group. Their uniforms were simple, clean, and practical. Their faces carried a calm expression, the type of calm that didn't come from arrogance, but from certainty. They looked around, absorbing every detail of the hall, the crowds, the guards, the expressions. They didn't speak much. They didn't try to take attention. They simply moved with purpose. Most species found this confusing. Usually, delegates from other civilizations arrived with loud introductions or heavy displays of power. Some came with giant escorts, others with ceremonial guards, a few with glowing symbols meant to show their importance. Humans came with none of that. Their quiet arrival was almost unsettling. A few aliens exchanged looks, wondering if the humans were trying to hide something, or if they were simply too humble for their own good. Inside the main hall, tall doorways led into an enormous circular chamber. The ceiling shifted with patterns of moving lights. The chairs were placed in a wide ring around a central platform where discussions were meant to happen. When the humans entered, several species turned to look at them. Some nodded politely, and the humans nodded back. No one spoke too loudly. No one rushed to greet them. The room felt like a place waiting for something to begin. The meeting started with tense introductions. Several powerful civilizations argued about disputes near their borders. Some blamed trade ships, others blamed navigation errors, and a few accused entire species of trespassing. Voices rose and fell as diplomats insisted that they were being treated unfairly, or that someone else was behaving aggressively. Through all this, the humans sat quietly, listening with complete focus. A few alien leaders side-eyed the humans. Many of them believed humans were inexperienced compared to old cosmic powers. They expected humans to panic, complain, brag, or demand special treatment. But the humans did none of that. They spoke only when the moderator asked for their opinion, and even then, they kept their replies short and calm. The humans didn't say, "We know what's going on." They didn't say, "We have a solution." They simply asked for more time to evaluate the situation fully, which sounded polite but vague. That confused the entire council. One alien whispered to another, "Why do they need more time? Don't they already know the status of their region?" Another replied, "Maybe they're too slow to understand the threat." But neither guess came close to the truth. Behind the scenes, humans were already acting, quietly, calmly, without drawing attention. Their devices were analyzing trade routes. Their officers were checking long-range scans. Their small crew communicated with distant ships in whispers of encrypted signals. Every step they took was deliberate, almost invisible. They seemed like they had expected this gathering to turn tense. They seemed like they had been waiting for the right moment or the right information before stepping forward. But they didn't rush. Humans rarely rushed when the situation involved more than themselves. They preferred steady preparation over loud warnings. Outside the meeting hall, the station's corridors buzzed with activity. Species from far corners of the galaxy chatted nervously, speculated wildly, and tried to read the behaviors of others. But whenever the humans passed by, the room quieted just a bit. No one could explain why. It wasn't fear, not hostility. It was something simpler: curiosity mixed with uncertainty. A few younger aliens followed the humans from a distance, observing them. They wondered why humans kept scanning the hallways. They wondered why the humans were counting emergency exits, checking structural supports, and noting the positions of maintenance bots. They weren't doing anything suspicious, just paying attention. One human paused near a viewport, overlooking the docking area. He stood there for a long moment, almost like he was measuring the space. The reflection of ships glimmered on the window. Traffic moved on steady paths. But behind the beauty of it, there was a tension that only a trained eye could see. The human's gaze sharpened. Then he whispered something into a communicator with a calm tone, almost as if confirming a detail from a checklist. Later, during another break between council sessions, an alien diplomat approached the humans. He asked whether they were aware of the escalating ship movements near the disputed zones. He expected them to be surprised or unsettled, but the humans simply nodded and said, "We're observing the developments." The diplomat pressed further. "What is your species planning to do?" The human answered in a soft voice, "We're preparing." But preparation does not need noise. Those words spread across the station within hours. Whispers traveled from one species to another. Some thought humans were bluffing. Others thought humans were hiding weakness. A few worried they might be hiding strength. But no one knew for sure. And not knowing was more uncomfortable than knowing. Meanwhile, the human delegation continued attending the meetings with the same calm expressions. They listened, took notes, and occasionally shared simple suggestions. Their advice wasn't dramatic or forceful. It was careful and practical. The kind of advice that came from people who understood consequences deeply. Some species began to see humans differently. A smaller civilization's representative approached the humans quietly, asking for help understanding the situation. The humans listened patiently and offered whatever information they could without trying to dominate the conversation. That simple act of kindness built more trust than any show of power could dot throughout the day. The station's general atmosphere grew heavier. Rumors of aggressive movements near the borders kept pouring in. A few ships were redirected. A few scouts went silent. Everyone could feel something shifting in the galaxy, a pressure building like the air before a storm. Yet the humans remained steady. They didn't raise their voices. They didn't argue. They didn't try to control the room. They simply kept watching, calculating, and adjusting their quiet plans. As night cycle approached, the large transparent windows dimmed to simulate evening. The meeting for the day ended, and the hall slowly emptied. The humans stayed behind for a moment, still seated at their place. They exchanged a few quiet words among themselves, reviewing what they had heard. Then they stood up and left without any hurry. Outside, the corridors were calmer. Many species had returned to their quarters to rest or continue private discussions. But the humans didn't return to their rooms yet. They walked through the quieter parts of the station, studying crew movement patterns, emergency systems, and communication hubs. They weren't preparing for conflict. They were preparing for stability. One human entered a small observation room that overlooked the external docking ring. From there, dozens of ships were visible, blinking with navigation lights. Some belonged to peaceful species. Others belonged to factions known for their sharp tempers. The human observed them with a thoughtful expression, as if trying to understand what they might do next. Behind him, another human checked a datapad filled with long lists of observations, supply tracking, and predictions. Every entry was precise, Every number had purpose. Their work had the calm focus of people who knew the universe could shift suddenly if no one took responsibility. Hours passed. Quiet conversations continued among the human team. They planned, but they didn't plan with fear. They planned with care. Their mission wasn't to act dramatically. It was to prepare for whatever might come, good or bad. Eventually, they returned to their quarters. But even then, they continued working in low voices. Their screens glowed softly as they studied long-range images and communication records. They were building a picture of the entire situation, piece by piece. While the rest of the galaxy argued loudly about who was right or wrong, this was the silent beginning of something much larger, something no one else could see yet. The humans weren't reacting. They were preparing. And in the vast, tense halls of the space station, their quiet readiness was the one thing no species could fully understand. Not yet, but soon. The galaxy would know exactly why humans had stayed so calm, and why their silence mattered far more than their words. The galaxy outside the station was growing restless. Trade routes that had been peaceful for decades now carried whispers of tension. Scouts reported small skirmishes, minor accidents, and miscommunications between ships that usually passed each other without incident. Some species began to accuse one another of sabotage. And in the middle of this rising chaos, humans remained calm, almost unnervingly so. While other species reacted with panic or loud posturing, humans quietly began preparations. It wasn't the kind of preparation that demanded attention or forced others to notice. It was subtle, precise, and efficient. Supplies were checked, communications tested, and maps of the surrounding sectors studied in detail. Small human teams moved through the station and its outer rings, noting the positions of every ship, every docking bay, every support system. Each action was deliberate. Nothing was wasted. Nothing was rushed. A few alien leaders continued to underestimate them. They are cautious, yes, one diplomat remarked quietly to another, but they are clearly inexperienced. Look at how slow they act compared to us. The other nodded, seeing only the calm exterior. They did not notice the layers beneath, the calculations, the analysis, the unseen coordination. Humans did not respond to these whispered judgments. They had learned long ago that true strength was rarely shown by loud words or flashy displays. It was measured in preparation, patience, and precision. And right now, humans were building both quietly and invisibly. Small convoys of human ships began moving outside the station. No one noticed at first. They didn't leave in a grand parade, and there were no signals to announce their departure. They simply followed predetermined routes, maintaining strict formation. Other species assumed they were minor supply runs, insignificant in scale. Some even mocked them behind their backs, believing the humans were retreating. In reality, each convoy was part of a larger plan. Humans were positioning themselves strategically, checking routes, mapping hazards, and ensuring that if any crisis occurred, every human vessel could respond instantly and without confusion. Even their movement was quiet and controlled. There was no chaos, no random energy flares, no signs that something massive was in motion. To anyone watching, humans appeared almost invisible, a minor presence in the grand bustle of the space station. Meanwhile, inside the station, tensions among the alien delegations continued to rise. Two factions accused each other of violating space treaties. Another threatened to cut off trade unless immediate concessions were made. The room filled with rising voices, each louder than the last. Humans remained seated, observing, taking notes, and occasionally offering calm, practical advice. At one point, a small species approached a human officer with a problem. Their trade route had been disrupted, and they were worried about losing essential supplies. The human listened carefully, asking a few pointed questions, and then calmly outlined several alternative routes and safety measures. The solution was simple, but it was effective. The small species left relieved, whispering among themselves about how humans seemed to understand logistics better than anyone else, even as they helped quietly. The humans did not draw attention to themselves. Other species began to notice subtle changes. Communication channels that had been jammed with noise suddenly became clear. Navigation systems that were overloaded now worked smoothly. A few alien technicians noticed that the humans had optimized energy flow in ways that seemed minor, but in fact increased efficiency across the entire station. While these small improvements went almost unnoticed, humans were preparing for something far bigger. They were gathering information on every moving part of the surrounding sectors, patrol routes, resource stations, and even small civilian shipping lanes. They noted potential hazards that no one else had considered. Every detail was being cataloged, every prediction checked. The humans did not speak of it. They did not boast. They simply worked, silently building a network of readiness that extended far beyond the station dot as night cycle approached again. Human teams began coordinating with their distant ships. Tiny messages traveled in low-power frequencies, invisible to other species. The conversations were short, precise, and completely focused. Other civilizations tried to intercept or eavesdrop, but found nothing useful. The humans had covered their tracks so well that it seemed as if they were not moving at all at the same time. Alien scouts became increasingly paranoid. Ships that had previously ignored each other now moved defensively. Some factions started redirecting their own forces, unsure why humans were not reacting like everyone else. They saw the calmness of humans and misinterpreted it. Some thought humans were weak. Others thought they were hiding fear. A few considered the possibility that humans were too small to matter. None of these guesses were correct. Deep inside the station, humans held a brief council of their own. They reviewed all incoming reports, recalculated risks, and adjusted their silent deployments. Every decision was methodical. No one acted on impulse. No one acted to intimidate. And yet, with every passing hour, their quiet influence grew. Systems ran smoother. Routes became safer. Civilians and smaller species began to notice improvements they could not explain. It was during this part of the day that the first signs of real pressure appeared. A minor trade convoy reported a near collision with a warship from another faction. Tensions flared immediately. Some species demanded immediate retaliation. Others prepared emergency defensive measures. The station hummed with panic. Humans, however, acted differently. They coordinated emergency channels, ensured communication between the ships, and rerouted traffic without raising alarms. What could have become a flashpoint for war ended quietly, with minimal disruption. No humans celebrated or drew attention to their intervention. They simply ensured that order was restored, and they moved on to the next task. Some alien observers began to notice a pattern. Whenever humans were involved, situations that could escalate into conflict seemed to calm down. It was not due to fear, not due to authority, and not due to overwhelming force. It was the way humans acted: predictable, precise, and efficient. Their calmness created calmness around them, like a steadying current in a turbulent river. But even as humans continued their quiet preparations, a few aliens grew suspicious. They had noticed the small movements of human ships outside the station. They had noticed the optimization of systems inside the station. They speculated wildly about what humans might be planning. Some feared a hidden strike force. Others imagined a secret fleet. None of their guesses were accurate. Humans were planning, yes, but not to attack. They were preparing for stability. By the time the second night cycle arrived, human crews had returned to their ships in small numbers. Each vessel was positioned strategically in relation to the station and other key areas. Every crew member understood their role. Every action was synchronized with other ships in ways that no one outside could see. The humans did not celebrate their readiness. They did not make announcements. They simply waited, calm and patient. Meanwhile, the other species continued to speculate. Rumors spread through the station's corridors. Humans are hiding something. They must have a hidden fleet. Why else would they be so calm? These whispers traveled quickly, creating tension and uncertainty. But humans paid no attention. They were focused on observing, preparing, and ensuring that when a crisis arose, they would be ready. That evening, one human officer looked out over the docking rings from a quiet observation deck. Hundreds of ships moved below, each following its own path. Some belonged to species known for aggression, some to peaceful traders. The human observed patterns that no one else seemed to notice, the timing of arrivals and departures, the distances maintained between ships, and even the subtle adjustments of their energy shields. Every observation was noted and cross-checked with data, collected from previous days. Another human quietly reviewed a datapad filled with long lists of supply inventories, energy readings, and predicted movements. Each number mattered. Each calculation was double-checked. They were not preparing for war. They were preparing for the protection of life, the prevention of accidents, and the ability to respond instantly if things went wrong. Small actions continued across the station. Humans repaired minor malfunctions before they became noticeable. They redirected small trade ships to prevent collisions. They even mediated minor disputes without drawing attention. No species knew how much work humans had done because nothing appeared dramatic. Their influence was subtle, almost invisible, but undeniably effective. By the time the night cycle ended and the station's lights returned to normal, humans had quietly completed a full day of preparation. They had not sought recognition. They had not acted with force. They had only observed, analyzed, and ensured that every moving piece was accounted for. To the outside galaxy, humans still seemed calm, even insignificant. They had not displayed weapons, fleets, or any sign of power. They were quiet observers. But the truth was far different. In their silence, humans had created a foundation of readiness stronger than anyone could imagine. They had prepared for every possible contingency, calculated every risk, and positioned every resource. And they had done it without panic, without chaos, and without drawing unnecessary attention. The galaxy did not yet know it, but this calm, precise, and careful preparation was only the beginning. Humans were quietly showing that they could handle any situation without losing composure, without creating fear, and without demanding attention. And in that quiet, patient way, humans were beginning to earn a kind of respect that no words or actions alone could achieve. By the end of Part 2, humans had proven something important, that real strength was not about noise, visibility, or threats. It was about preparation, observation, and discipline. And while the galaxy remained unaware of the full scale of human capability, those who paid attention quietly began to realize that humans were not just another species. They were something different, reliable, focused, and quietly powerful in ways no one could yet comprehend. Tension in the galaxy was growing. Ships that once moved along trade routes with calm efficiency were now being diverted, delayed, or shadowed by patrols from various factions. Reports of near collisions and miscommunications kept appearing in the station's communication logs. Every species was on edge. Some spoke loudly in corridors, accusing each other of plotting attacks. Others whispered quietly, worried that even their closest allies might betray them. Despite this, the humans remained calm. Their presence on the station continued to stand out, not because of any display of force, but because of the quiet control they seemed to radiate. Even as other species argued, humans observed. Even as other delegations demanded immediate action, humans listened. They spoke only when necessary, their words measured, deliberate, and practical. No one could accuse them of fear or hesitation, yet they were not passive either. Outside the station, human ships continued their silent operations. Their movements remained unnoticed by most. Where other fleets drew attention with energy flares, sudden course changes, or radio signals, human ships moved with smooth, precise patterns. They formed invisible grids, spread evenly across the nearby sectors, and maintained positions that allowed them to respond to any situation. Their small size and calm approach made them almost invisible to scanners tuned to detect threats. Inside the station, the humans' quiet actions began to influence others, even without their direct involvement. Minor disputes that could have escalated into confrontations were resolved subtly. A small species that had been arguing over docking rights was quietly redirected by human suggestions. The parties involved never realized the humans had guided them. Even minor system malfunctions were corrected before anyone noticed. The humans' attention to detail created a ripple of stability across the station, unnoticed but effective. Some alien leaders began to grow curious and uneasy. They had been watching humans for several cycles now, trying to understand their methods. They had expected fear, confusion, or at least some visible response to the rising tension. But humans remained composed. Some began to suspect that there was more to them than met the eye. Others dismissed them as lucky or unusually cautious. None could see the full scope of human preparation. At one point, a minor incident occurred on the station. A small shuttle carrying supplies from one faction to another drifted off course due to a mechanical failure. It could have collided with a larger cargo vessel, creating panic and potential accusations. But a human officer, observing through station sensors, immediately coordinated a solution. Using only communication channels that did not alert the public, the human guided both ships safely to docking bays. No alarm sounded. No attention was drawn. The incident passed quietly, unnoticed by most, but it was another example of human subtle influence. While others panicked, humans focused on observation and prediction. They began mapping the intentions of surrounding fleets, noting patterns in patrols, supply runs, and civilian movements. Every detail mattered. They cross-checked their data constantly, ensuring accuracy. They did not need to act immediately. Preparation alone was a kind of power. They were building a network of awareness that stretched across the sector, one that could respond to threats or disasters instantly. Smaller species on the station began noticing these quiet actions. One delegation approached the humans to ask for advice on navigation routes disrupted by the growing tension. The humans provided clear, calm guidance, offering alternatives that reduced risks and ensured efficiency. The smaller species left feeling reassured. They had seen power in action without a display of weapons or fleets. It was the kind of respect that came from reliability, not intimidation. Meanwhile, human observers monitored the interactions of larger species. Every negotiation, every heated exchange was recorded and analyzed. They noted how quickly tempers flared and how easily miscommunication led to escalation. This knowledge was quietly shared among human crews, helping them anticipate potential conflicts before they happened. They did not intervene directly unless absolutely necessary. Instead, they created conditions in which stability could naturally return as tensions rose further. Two alien factions came dangerously close to open confrontation. Their patrol ships had accidentally crossed paths near a disputed trade route, and both sides readied their weapons. Other species on the station grew anxious, fearing that a minor mistake could trigger full-scale conflict. Humans, however, acted calmly. They did not rush to intercede, but quietly sent messages to both factions, reminding them of safe navigation protocols and providing real-time data on each vessel's position. The effect was immediate. The two factions adjusted their courses, preventing a collision without confrontation. No one cheered, no weapons fired, No dramatic display occurred. But for the humans, this was a success. Their preparation and calm intervention had prevented chaos. It was proof that action did not always require force. Sometimes knowledge, timing, and precision were far more effective. Some alien leaders began to talk about the humans in quiet tones. "They do not rush," one whispered. "They do not panic. Yet somehow, things improve when they act." Another replied, "Perhaps they are hiding something, or perhaps they simply understand control better than we do." Even the skeptics could not ignore the pattern. The calm humans seemed to influence events more than their size or technology might suggest. Inside the station, human teams continued to coordinate their efforts. They monitored communication networks, observing signals from ships in distant sectors. They reviewed supply chains, predicting potential delays or shortages. They adjusted energy flows on the station, improving efficiency and reliability without drawing attention. Every move was deliberate, every decision backed by careful observation. A human officer paused near a window that overlooked the outer docking rings. Hundreds of ships moved in silence, each following its programmed path. Some belonged to peaceful traders. Others were military vessels, tense and ready. The human observed their positions, noting patterns in timing, speed, and behavior. Every detail was logged, every observation checked against previous records. The calm and patient study of patterns was as important as any action they might take in the future. Meanwhile, alien scouts tried to understand human behavior. They observed the small movements of human ships and the efficiency inside the station. They speculated. Were humans hiding advanced technology? Were they secretly planning to intervene in a major conflict? They could not answer. Humans were not revealing anything. They acted only when necessary, and always with subtlety. Humans continued their quiet work throughout the station. Minor malfunctions were fixed. Civilian routes were adjusted for safety. Small disputes were guided toward resolution without anyone noticing. Even as other species argued, humans acted efficiently, silently weaving stability into the environment. Their actions were invisible to those focused on dramatic displays, but undeniable to anyone paying close attention. The calm demeanor of humans began to have an effect. Crew members from other species, who had previously been tense and uncertain, started mimicking human patience. They moved more deliberately, checked data more carefully, and avoided panic. The humans' calm influence spread like a quiet ripple across the station. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but it was real. As another night cycle approached, human crews reviewed all incoming information. They had observed minor skirmishes, near collisions, and heated arguments. They had monitored hundreds of ships, calculated risks, and predicted potential crises. Yet they remained calm. Their readiness did not rely on immediate action, but on preparation, observation, and discipline. Outside, human ships continued their silent patrols. They maintained precise formations, monitored critical routes, and observed alien fleets without being detected. Their positioning was strategic, ensuring that they could respond instantly if needed. But for now, they remained unseen, unthreatening, and quiet. Inside the station, humans quietly prepared for the coming cycles. They reviewed data logs, updated predictions, and coordinated with ships in remote sectors. Their actions were methodical. Every member of the human team knew their role, and every move was synchronized with others. The preparation was invisible to most, but it was far-reaching. It extended not just across the station, but across the galaxy. Even as the galaxy seemed to edge closer to conflict, humans maintained their calm. They did not need to display power, to argue loudly, or to act aggressively. Their strength lay in observation, preparation, and patience. And while other species speculated about what humans might do next, the humans continued their work quietly, steadily, and effectively. By the end of this cycle, humans had proven something vital. They had prevented incidents that could have escalated into war. They had stabilized situations without anyone realizing their influence. They had quietly prepared fleets, systems, and personnel for any eventuality. And in the process, they had begun to earn a reputation not for intimidation, but for reliability, skill, and calm authority. No one yet understood the full extent of human capability. No one had seen the coordination, the strategic planning, or the precision of their actions. But those who observed closely began to notice a pattern. Wherever humans acted, events tended to resolve calmly. Chaos was avoided. Panic was managed. Stability returned. And so the galaxy waited, unaware of the full scale of human readiness, yet slowly beginning to sense that these quiet, disciplined beings were not what they seemed. They were more than observers. They were organizers, problem solvers, and steady hands in a turbulent universe. The humans knew this was only the beginning. The next cycles would bring more challenges, more tension, and more opportunities to act. But their approach would remain the same: calm observation, careful preparation, and precise, disciplined action. They did not need to boast. They did not need to threaten. They only needed to be ready. And in the galaxy, that quiet readiness was beginning to make others uneasy, curious, and slowly respectful. The galaxy had grown restless. Even within the walls of the space station, tension hung like a heavy fog. Rumors of conflicts in distant sectors spread quickly through communication channels. Small skirmishes, navigational errors, and heated arguments were becoming common, and the atmosphere felt closer to chaos with every passing cycle. Ships moved faster, their crews anxious. Factions accused one another of sabotage, and minor accidents risked escalating into larger problems. Yet amidst all this, the humans remained calm, unshaken, and deeply focused on observation. They moved through the station with their usual quiet precision. Every step was measured. Every glance had a purpose. No detail escaped their attention. They checked docking systems, monitored supply lines, and quietly coordinated communications between ships from different species. While others shouted, demanded, or panicked, humans acted methodically. They didn't need recognition. They didn't need to display power. Their influence was subtle, almost invisible, but undeniable in its effect. Outside the station, human ships continued their silent deployments. Their formations were precise, following calculations so meticulous that every movement seemed predetermined. No weapons were activated. No energy signatures blared across sensors. The ships were simply in position, each one carefully placed to monitor trade routes, civilian lanes, and potential hotspots. Other species saw only small movements and assumed the humans were timid or inexperienced. Few realized the significance of every adjustment. Inside, minor incidents continued to appear. A supply shuttle misaligned its docking sequence, nearly colliding with a larger vessel. A small group of aliens disagreed on a navigation route, voices rising in frustration. In both cases, humans intervened quietly. A message here, a suggested adjustment there, and the problems were resolved without anyone noticing. Calm returned where tension had been rising. Even those who were skeptical began to notice a pattern. Whenever humans acted, situations improved. They did not use intimidation. They did not threaten. Their approach was simple but effective. Careful observation, precise action, and an unwavering focus on stability. For some, it was unsettling. How could such small, seemingly ordinary beings have so much influence? A critical moment came as the station monitored signals from two large fleets on opposite sides of a disputed sector. These fleets had been on edge for cycles, each expecting the other to make the first move. Scouts reported sudden movements. Patrols were aggressive. Civilians in the area began to report confusion and concern. The situation had the potential to explode into full-scale conflict. The humans reacted differently. They did not rush to confront either fleet. They did not display weapons or prepare for battle. Instead, they quietly analyzed patterns, calculated distances, monitored energy outputs, and predicted possible moves from each side. Messages were sent in low-power channels that only the intended ships could receive. These were not threats. They were precise instructions to maintain stability, prevent collisions, and reduce panic. As the cycles passed, the humans' approach began to work. The two fleets adjusted their positions. Minor miscommunications were resolved. The potential for conflict diminished without anyone noticing who had intervened. The humans did not celebrate or draw attention to themselves. Their satisfaction was quiet, internal, based on the effectiveness of their preparation and observation. Alien observers began to speak in hushed tones. They do not panic, one remarked. They do not react to threats with fear or aggression. Yet somehow, they are everywhere, and nothing seems to go wrong when they are involved. Others nodded, uncertain how to interpret this. They still assumed humans were limited in capability, but doubt was growing. Perhaps these quiet beings were not as ordinary as they appeared. Within the station, humans continued to coordinate. They reviewed logs, cross-referenced patterns, and predicted movements across the galaxy. Their calculations were subtle, almost invisible to outsiders, but they formed a web of control and awareness that stretched far beyond the station. Every small adjustment, every intervention, was designed to prevent escalation while maintaining calm. As the cycles moved on, humans observed signals of a major energy buildup at the edge of the station's long-range sensors. At first, the observers from other species assumed it was a natural phenomenon, perhaps a solar flare or a navigation error. But the humans immediately recognized the patterns as deliberate, organized, and potentially dangerous if left unchecked. Quietly, humans began preparing for a demonstration of their full capabilities. They did not act recklessly or aggressively. Instead, they coordinated all their ships into precise positions. Communications were synchronized. Supplies and emergency protocols were verified. Every ship knew its exact role. Every crew member knew what to expect. There was no chaos. There was no showmanship. There was only careful, disciplined preparation. The humans' calm approach contrasted sharply with the growing panic among other species. Reports of minor skirmishes and navigational errors kept increasing. Tension filled the station. Alien leaders shouted in frustration, attempting to coordinate their fleets. Some feared the humans were hiding a secret. Others believed the humans were waiting for a mistake. Yet no one could predict what would happen next. Then the moment arrived. Sensors picked up hundreds of human ships emerging at the edge of the station's detection range. Not one was out of place. Not one moved independently. They formed a massive, coordinated presence, stretching across the sector in perfect alignment. Other species watched in stunned silence. The humans had revealed a scale of organization that no one had expected. It was not aggressive. It was not threatening. There were no weapons aimed, no energy beams fired, no warnings issued. The ships simply existed in their positions, ready, precise, and disciplined. The scale and coordination alone sent waves of shock through the alien delegations. They had underestimated humans for decades. The quiet, patient observers who seemed ordinary were capable of immense order and readiness. Inside the station, humans did not speak loudly or boast. They remained composed, coordinating their fleet silently, ensuring that every ship and every crew member was ready. Their goal was not to intimidate. It was to demonstrate that calm preparation and discipline could prevent chaos more effectively than panic or aggression ever could. Alien leaders whispered in disbelief. How could they hide this for so long? One asked. They did not boast. They did not make threats. And yet this, another replied, they are not ordinary. They are something we do not yet understand. Even as humans revealed their fleet, they did not act rashly. They waited for signals from the other species. They maintained communication channels, but did not demand action. Their calm presence created an atmosphere where panic could not take hold. What could have escalated into a crisis became an opportunity for observation and negotiation. Through subtle actions, humans began to guide other fleets into stable positions. No one realized they were being guided. Energy outputs, navigation paths, and supply lines were adjusted quietly. The human fleet was a demonstration of coordination, discipline, and preparation, not power for its own sake. It was a signal that humans could handle chaos without creating it. The impact was immediate. The two previously tense fleets reduced their aggression. Patrols adjusted to safer paths. Minor errors that could have led to collisions were corrected. Civilian shipping routes returned to normal. And all of this happened without a single shot fired or a single threat made. Within the station, alien delegations were speechless. Humans, who had once seemed ordinary and even cautious, had demonstrated a level of readiness and precision that no one had imagined. They had revealed their true capability without showing aggression, without making demands, and without creating panic. Their presence alone stabilized the situation. For the first time, many species began to see humans differently. They realized that humans did not seek to dominate or intimidate. They did not rely on fear or chaos. Instead, they relied on preparation, discipline, and precise coordination. Their strength was not in the weapons they carried or the ships they commanded, but in the calm, calculated way they could act in a complex and chaotic galaxy. Even as the revelation of the fleet settled into memory, humans continued their quiet work. They monitored sectors, coordinated supply lines, and ensured that every part of their network remained stable. Their ships held positions not to threaten, but to observe and stabilize. Every crew member acted with patience and focus. Their calm authority contrasted sharply with the chaos that had once seemed inevitable. By the end of the cycle, humans had achieved something extraordinary. Without aggression, without noise, without chaos, they had revealed their true power. Not a power of destruction, but a power of control, preparation, and discipline. The galaxy had witnessed the quiet strength of humans, and the shock was complete. Alien leaders and smaller species alike began to understand that humans were not ordinary. Their calm, patient, and disciplined approach to crisis had created stability where panic might have prevailed. They had revealed not just their fleet, but the philosophy behind it. That preparation, observation, and precise action were far more powerful than noise, chaos, or aggression. In the halls of the space station, whispers turned into cautious respect. They do not act recklessly, one delegate said, yet they control everything quietly. Another nodded. We misjudged them. We thought them ordinary, timid, and weak. But they are patient, precise, and quietly powerful. The humans did not respond to praise or recognition. Their work was not for accolades. It was for stability, for order, and for the protection of life across the sectors. And in revealing their true presence so calmly and precisely, they had changed the perception of their entire species in the galaxy. By the end of this day, the galaxy understood a simple truth. Humans were a force that did not need to shout, threaten, or dominate. Their power lay in preparation, observation, and calm discipline. And in the quiet revelation of their fleet, they had left the galaxy stunned, respectful, and aware that humans were far more capable than anyone had imagined. After the revelation of the human fleet, the space station and the surrounding galaxy seemed to breathe a quiet sigh. Where tension had once surged, a calm began to spread. It was not the calm of defeat or submission. It was a calm born from understanding, from seeing a force that did not need to threaten to command attention. Humans had shown that their strength was not in weapons or numbers alone, but in preparation, precision, and discipline. The fleets that had been on edge slowly adjusted their positions. Ships that had been bristling with defensive measures now moved with smoother, coordinated paths. Patrols realigned. Civilian convoys resumed their routes without delay. Even factions that had been suspicious of one another began to pause, reconsider, and communicate. The mere presence of the human fleet created an invisible framework of order. Humans did not demand recognition for this. They did not hover over the station or broadcast messages. Their ships remained in perfect formation, ready to act if needed, but otherwise silent. Inside the station, the human delegation continued, monitoring communications, reviewing supply lines, and observing patterns. They worked quietly, like the calm center of a storm that others could feel but could not touch. Smaller species, once nervous and unsure, began seeking human advice. One group, responsible for transporting food and medical supplies to several sectors, asked for guidance on route planning. Humans reviewed their maps and offered subtle adjustments, considering timing, energy usage, and potential conflicts. The result was a smoother operation, with no incidents and no alarm. The smaller species could not explain why everything seemed safer and easier when humans were involved, but they noticed it. Slowly, respect grew. Even the larger factions could not ignore the human influence. Some had initially assumed that the fleet was a bluff, that humans were inexperienced and weak. Now, they realized they had been wrong. The quiet confidence of the humans was paired with extraordinary planning. Every movement was deliberate. Every decision anticipated potential outcomes. No one had seen the full extent of it, but the effect was undeniable. Chaos was being replaced by order, fear by careful attention. Inside the station, human teams coordinated across multiple systems. They monitored sensor networks, predicting the movements of ships far beyond the station itself. They observed energy signatures, supply levels, and traffic patterns. They noticed subtle risks that other species had overlooked: overcrowded docking, bays, minor miscommunications, and possible navigation errors. Where others might panic or blame each other, humans quietly acted to prevent problems before they even became visible. A minor skirmish in a distant sector provided another opportunity to demonstrate human influence. Two trade convoys had miscommunicated about docking rights, leading to a near collision. Other species anticipated an argument, maybe even retaliation. But humans intervened subtly. Using secure, low-power communication channels, they relayed precise instructions that guided both convoys to safe paths. When the issue resolved quietly, no one realized that humans had been the reason. Yet the situation's resolution added to their growing reputation. Alien delegates began discussing humans in new ways. They do not act aggressively, yet they control events without being noticed, one whispered. Another responded, they have patience we do not understand. They prepare for every possibility, and yet they remain calm. Even skeptics could not deny the pattern. Humans influenced outcomes without appearing to do so. Their strength was invisible, but undeniable. Humans also coordinated internally, reviewing every potential weak point. Supply chains were double-checked. Emergency protocols were refined. Every crew member knew their role. Every ship knew its position. The scale of preparation was immense, yet it was carried out quietly, without disruption. Other species watching closely could see order, but not the full complexity behind it. It was an invisible web of readiness that stretched across the sector. As time passed, the effect of the human fleet became more pronounced. Ships from factions that had been hostile began to adjust their behaviors. Patrols became more predictable. Miscommunication was reduced. Minor incidents that would have caused tension now resolved themselves quickly. The calm authority of humans had a ripple effect, creating stability even without direct intervention. Inside the station, human officers reviewed data from the fleet. Hundreds of ships were positioned in strategic locations, monitoring trade lanes, patrol routes, and civilian traffic. Even when nothing required immediate action, humans analyzed patterns, recalculated risks, and ensured readiness. The quiet discipline of the fleet mirrored the calm of the humans themselves. Their strength was not shown in aggression, but in preparation and precision. Some alien leaders began seeking advice openly. A delegation responsible for monitoring a border sector approached humans for guidance on resource management. The humans offered clear, practical solutions. Timing adjustments, energy efficiency tips, and minor logistical changes were suggested. The results were immediate. Traffic flowed smoothly, minor disputes were avoided, and the delegation could continue their work without incident. These small successes further elevated human credibility. Even the largest fleets began to pause and reconsider their strategies. Humans had shown that intervention did not require displays of force. A quiet, organized presence was enough to prevent escalation. For the first time, several factions began to treat humans not as ordinary observers, but as stabilizers forces, whose calm influence could prevent disasters that might otherwise spiral out of control. One evening, a human officer observed the station's docking rings from a quiet observation deck. Hundreds of ships moved below, each following precise paths. Some belonged to peaceful traders, others to tense factions. The humans studied every movement, noting patterns and predicting potential issues. Every detail was logged, every calculation checked. It was a quiet act, almost invisible, yet it ensured stability across the sector. Human influence continued to expand. Coordination between distant ships became seamless. Minor technical issues were fixed before they caused delays. Small disputes among alien crews were mediated subtly. The calm authority of humans began to influence even those who initially doubted them. Crew members moved with more patience. Decisions were made more carefully. Chaos was being replaced by order simply because humans were present and attentive. Even as tensions remained in distant sectors, humans maintained a steady influence. They did not act out of fear or arrogance. They acted because preparation, observation, and discipline were more effective than aggression. Their calm, patient approach began to redefine how other species viewed power. Strength did not have to be loud or threatening. It could be quiet, controlled, and deeply effective. By this time, the story of the human fleet had begun to circulate across the station. Smaller species whispered of the calm discipline of humans. Larger factions, who had once doubted them, now regarded them with a mixture of caution and respect. No one had seen the full extent of the fleet's coordination, yet everyone could feel its presence. Humans had shown that their readiness was unmatched, not through force, but through preparation, patience, and precision. The humans themselves continued their quiet work. Fleet coordination, monitoring, and preparation remained their priority. No one received orders without full awareness of consequences. Every decision was deliberate, every movement synchronized. Their calm authority created an environment where even high-tension sectors could operate without immediate conflict. In private, humans reviewed long-term strategies. They anticipated potential challenges, monitored vulnerable areas, and ensured that every ship, every crew, and every system was prepared. Their planning extended far beyond the immediate crises, building a foundation of stability that would last long after the current tensions had eased. By the end of this period, the effect of humans was clear. Ships moved more safely. Trade resumed more smoothly. Conflicts that might have escalated were prevented. Even alien leaders who had doubted them now admitted, quietly, that humans had changed the game. Their calm, precise, and disciplined approach to preparation had become a model of effective influence that no one fully understood humans yet, but they were beginning to learn. Strength was not only measured by weapons or fleets. It was also measured by preparation, observation, patience, and the ability to act decisively without creating chaos. Humans had shown this in the most subtle way possible, and the galaxy was beginning to take notice. The quiet ripple of human influence continued across the station and then the surrounding sectors. Every small intervention, every subtle adjustment, reinforced the reputation of humans as a stabilizing force. They had not shouted. They had not demanded. They had simply been prepared. And that preparation, that quiet discipline, was enough to bring order where chaos threatened to take hold. By the end of this cycle, humans had demonstrated something extraordinary. They had turned tension into calm. They had prevented incidents without aggression. They had shown that careful observation, precise preparation, and patience could be more powerful than any display of force. The galaxy, though not fully aware of the scale, had begun to respect humans not for the weapons they carried, but for the calm and discipline they embodied. And so, humans remained a quiet, patient presence. Their influence stretched far beyond what anyone could see. They had proven that strength could be subtle, and that preparation could prevent chaos where aggression might fail. The galaxy was beginning to understand the quiet power of humans, a power that did not shout, but steadied everything it touched. The galaxy was quieter now, but not in the way anyone expected. The calm that spread was not from fear or submission, but from understanding. Humans had shown the galaxy a new kind of power, a power that did not rely on loud displays, overwhelming weapons, or threats. They had demonstrated that preparation, patience, and discipline could be stronger than any fleet of warships. Inside the space station, humans continued their work quietly. They monitored communication channels, observed fleets, and ensured that traffic in the surrounding sectors flowed smoothly. Every ship, every crew member, every system was in its place, ready to respond instantly to any problem. Yet they did not show off, did not brag, did not demand recognition. Their satisfaction came from knowing that order had been restored and would continue. Other species began to notice the subtle ways humans influenced stability. Minor errors in docking, navigation, and trade routes were being corrected before they caused disruption. Disputes that could have escalated into arguments or fights were quietly resolved. Trade continued without interruption. Patrols operated efficiently. Even the most anxious species felt calmer, simply because humans were present. The effect was like a gentle current flowing through the galaxy, steadying everything in its path. A small faction, responsible for transporting supplies to outer sectors, approached the humans for guidance. They were nervous, unsure if they would be able to navigate through areas where tensions had recently flared. The humans studied the maps, checked energy levels, and suggested small adjustments in timing and route. The results were immediate. Supplies reached their destinations on schedule, without any incidents. The small faction quietly marveled at the efficiency and precision of humans. Unable to explain how such calm and thoughtful planning could make such a difference, even the larger fleets that had once viewed humans as insignificant began to change their perspective. They saw how humans could influence events without aggression, and they started to respect the discipline and foresight that the humans displayed. Some quietly consulted humans about logistics and movement strategies. Others observed, trying to understand the principles behind human preparation. It was a transformation in perception. Humans had earned respect not through intimidation, but through calm effectiveness. Inside the station, human teams coordinated with their distant ships, reviewing positions, monitoring energy consumption, and predicting possible scenarios. Every small adjustment was considered carefully. Nothing was wasted. Every action was deliberate. While other species continued to speculate about human intentions, humans continued their quiet work, ensuring that every sector remained stable and efficient. A minor incident occurred in one of the outer sectors. Two civilian ships had miscommunicated and were on a collision course. Other fleets noticed the situation and prepared to intervene. But humans acted quietly, calculating new routes and sending instructions directly to the ships involved. Within moments, the danger passed without alarms, without aggression, without anyone realizing the humans had acted. The fleets that had been ready to confront each other were left impressed by the seamless resolution. Over time, the presence of humans became a stabilizing factor. Trade routes were safer. Communication between species improved. Minor disputes were less frequent. Even previously hostile fleets hesitated before acting rashly, knowing that humans were observing and prepared. Their calm influence had begun to change behavior across the galaxy. It was subtle, invisible to those not paying attention, but its effects were undeniable. The humans' work was not about glory or recognition. They did not need praise. Their goal was simple: to create order, prevent chaos, and ensure that life across the galaxy could continue safely. Every system, every fleet, every sector was part of a carefully considered network. Each human knew their role. Each decision was calculated. The galaxy was beginning to see that true strength did not need to be loud. It could be measured in patience, preparation, and precision. Alien leaders whispered among themselves, marveling at the human approach. "They do not demand respect," one said quietly. "Yet everything seems to work better when they are involved." Another replied, "Their strength is invisible, yet it is real. We misjudged them for too long." Even skeptics had to admit that humans had shown something extraordinary: the ability to influence without forcing, to guide without commanding, and to protect without aggression. The human fleet remained positioned strategically, not to intimidate, but to observe and stabilize. Each ship moved in perfect synchronization. Even without action, their presence alone maintained order. Civilian ships, trade convoys, and smaller factions adjusted their behavior automatically, responding to the invisible rhythm of preparation and coordination established by humans. Humans continued to plan for long-term stability. They monitored trends, predicted potential conflicts, and ensured that resources were distributed efficiently. Their focus was not on immediate crisis alone, but on creating a foundation of order that could endure. Their approach was methodical. Their work was invisible, but its effects reached across multiple sectors, touching every species in subtle ways. One evening, a human officer observed the galaxy from the station's observation deck. Fleets moved below, each following its assigned path. Civilian ships carried goods and supplies safely. Patrols moved with efficiency. The officer noted patterns, predicted potential issues, and ensured readiness for any contingency. There was calm in the galaxy, but it was a calm built on preparation, not luck. It was the result of human foresight and discipline. Smaller species began to share stories, quietly, about how humans had helped them. They spoke of efficiency, safety, and calm guidance. They spoke of how minor conflicts resolved themselves. They spoke of smooth trade and safe travel. The tailies spread slowly, carried from one sector to another. Humans had become more than observers. They were stabilizers, quiet protectors whose influence no one could fully see, yet everyone could feel. Even the most powerful fleets began to approach humans with respect. They realized that humans were not ordinary. Their calm preparation, their patience, and their precise actions had prevented chaos that might have spiraled out of control. They had shown that strength was not measured by aggression, but by the ability to manage complexity and uncertainty. The galaxy was beginning to understand that humans were unique. Inside the station, humans continued to monitor, coordinate, and prepare. Supply lines were checked. Navigation paths were recalculated. Emergency systems were verified. Every crew member understood their role, and every ship operated as part of a larger system. Their work was quiet, almost invisible, yet its effects were profound. By the end of this cycle, the galaxy had changed. Trade routes were stable. Conflicts that might have erupted had been prevented. Civilian and military fleets operated with fewer errors. Minor disputes were resolved before escalation. And all of this had been achieved not through displays of power, but through calm observation, careful preparation, and disciplined action. Alien leaders began to see humans differently. Where they had once assumed humans were ordinary, timid, or inexperienced, they now recognized a deeper capability. Humans did not seek to dominate. They did not boast or threaten. They simply acted with discipline and foresight, creating stability in a galaxy that had often teetered on the edge of chaos. Humans had also changed the way others thought about leadership and influence. They demonstrated that true power could be quiet, deliberate, and invisible. Their strength lay not in weapons or intimidation, but in preparation, coordination, and calm decision-making. Others began to emulate this approach, learning that patience and planning could achieve far more than reckless action. Even as humans maintained their presence, they remained humble. There were no celebrations. There were no announcements. Their satisfaction came from knowing that life across the galaxy had become safer and more predictable. Their influence was steady, persistent, and reliable. Others may have underestimated them before, but now it was clear. Humans were a force unlike any other. The galaxy, once chaotic and tense, had found a new balance. Trade routes were efficient. Civilian ships moved safely. Fleets operated without unnecessary aggression. Minor disputes were resolved quietly. The presence of humans created a calm that was felt but not always understood. It was a quiet authority that stabilized everything it touched. As the final cycles passed, humans continued their work with the same calm precision. Observation, preparation, and discipline remained their guiding principles. They ensured that even in times of uncertainty, the galaxy remained steady. Their influence had become a quiet thread woven into the fabric of space, stabilizing sectors and shaping behavior without anyone realizing exactly how. By the end of Part 6, it was clear. Humans had transformed the galaxy not through war, not through force, but through preparation, patience, and careful action. They had earned respect through quiet effectiveness. They had prevented chaos, guided fleets, and protected life across multiple sectors. And in doing so, they left the galaxy with a lasting lesson. True strength is not always visible. It does not always roar or shine. Sometimes it is quiet, disciplined, and deliberate. Sometimes it is the patient hand that prevents disaster and steadies the universe. Humans had become a symbol of that quiet power. They had revealed their true capabilities, not with aggression, but with preparation. They had earned respect not by dominating, but by stabilizing. And in that calm, patient presence, the galaxy finally understood. Humans were a force to be recognized, trusted, and admired. The galaxy would never forget the moment humans revealed their true nature. A force that did not need to shout, yet left a lasting impression through order, discipline, and calm authority. Their presence had changed everything, quietly and forever.